Before I started learning Godot this year, I used FlowLab, which is a website where you build games with flowcharts. I've been using it for almost 4 years now since I started in 2019. I ended up finishing a lot of games that I'm proud of on it, mostly through the FlowJam competitions that happen twice a year. FlowJam is a type of game jam, which is where game developers from around the world enter in an online contest to see who can make the best game within a restrictive theme and time limit, which usually ranges between 2 and 14 days. So then you might think that sounds perfect. So then why did I want to learn Godot? The first thing is that it can become really time consuming to use flowcharts when you're making something complicated, at least for me. Next, due to FlowLab being a web engine where everything has to run within the web browser, games can also be difficult to run with poor performance if you have too many objects loaded in a level. And lastly, Godot overall has a lot more features, including the built-in tile map support in the form of the tile map node, and very flexible collisions with layers that let things like this happen. Unlike FlowLab, Godot has to be downloaded. It uses both C# as well as GDScript, its own coding language based on Python. Despite the newest version, Godot 4.0, being recently released at the time of my independent study, I decided to stick with 3.5 throughout the semester. This is because Godot 4 barely had any tutorials or resources online, and had issues with web exports at the time. I've tried to learn Godot a few times before, and didn't get very far. I followed too closely to tutorials and ended up just copying everything they did and not learning anything. So this time I tried to stick to a single tutorial series for the most part, and I took a break from it to experiment on my own every second week. I think it helped to be able to apply whatever I learned quickly after learning it, instead of possibly forgetting about it by the time I'd finished the series. After I was finished with the tutorial series, I decided to enter a game jam to test what I'd learned. Luckily, a large Godot-specific game jam called Godot Wild Jam was being hosted in a few days. The jam was hosted on itch.io, like almost any other online game jam. For this jam we had one theme and 3 wildcards you could follow for extra inspiration, and 9 days to make it all happen. After 9 days the submissions would close and we would start putting in ratings and comments. The theme was dreams, with these 3 wildcards. My original idea was pretty much what I stuck with. It involved going into someone's dreams while they're in a non-responsive state and trying to clear their mind to wake them up again. On the first day, I started fixing up and adding to a wall jump script that had started before the jam. I also opened up Sprite to start drawing the assets in pixel art. On the second day, I finished working on the physics and throwing arc of this exploding projectile just added. I also added more sound effects and a new tile map. On the third day, I added more sounds as well as bomb jumping, which would become a core part of the game. For the next few days, I would focus on making sprites and music for the game. By day 7, I'd added a new health system and a music track that I'd made over the weekend. On day 8, I learned how to use global variables by preloading a script full of variables for all nodes to draw from. They're used to track how many obstacles there are left to destroy. On the last day I focused on building out the map and fixing all the issues. I got it submitted within a few hours of the deadline. Once the ratings opened, I got lots of nice comments from other participants. One of them even streamed themselves playing the game on Twitch as well as a lot of other entries. I didn't get ranked great, but I was in the top half. Out of 93 entries, I was ranked best in audio at 27th, worst in graphics at 54th. Which is fair because I didn't even know how to change the background color at the time. I think it looks a lot better now that the background is black. The game also lacked a lot in animation because I used a lot of time figuring stuff out in the engine instead of in Sprite. So I had this idea around when I finished the tutorial series to make a top-down shooter based underwater with a ship that bounces around. I started figuring out the movement and found a solution for bouncing. My plan was to spend the rest of the semester finishing this bigger project and making it as polished as I could. This was definitely the hardest part of the class, but also the most interesting. I spent just over a month working on this project, and while things mostly went according to plan, there was definitely some bumps in the road. The main thing that threw me off during the project was that I was supposed to have almost 2 months to work on it, but due to a trip to Kelowna and getting sick for a week after I got back, I lost 2 weeks of what could have been spent on the project, which left me a bit behind. I think the best decision I made during this project was having my friend Tucker play it every few days during the week. Having someone else play exposed flaws and bugs that I couldn't see myself, and I could get valuable feedback and ideas that helped me guide the game a lot closer to something people would like. It was a long process of troubleshooting issues, learning new things, and tweaking numbers over and over again, but I ended up with a game that was pretty fun, according to 2 people at least. I came out of this semester spending around 95 hours on the independent study overall. This includes the hours recorded in my journal throughout the months, the time it took to make this video, and the estimated time of working on the sound and visuals of each project, which for the most part wasn't recorded like all the time I spent programming. If I was to do anything differently, I would probably keep learning Python first for a few more weeks before going into GDScript. I also would have had one of my friends play testing during the game jam. Otherwise, I'm pretty satisfied with what I got done, and I'm hoping to continue using Godot as well as FlowLab to make games over the next few years.